Hello, dear friends. Welcome to another episode of the SarahSpeaks Podcast, the podcast where we explore leadership, discuss business, shape leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. We've been on an incredible journey discussing the giants of enterprise. We're learning from the giants of entrepreneurship in Nigeria. Today, we go to the third episode where we will talk about the digital disruptors, those who are shaping the business landscape from the year 2010 to date. We're learning from the giants of enterprise in Nigeria, those who dared to invest in our often chaotic but opportunity-filled Nigeria. We started with the pioneers, those who dared to invest and succeeded in the years 1960 to 1980. The giants of enterprise of the 1960s who, despite the war-torn Nigeria, despite the uncertainties of the future, despite the challenges of that time, dared to invest and build conglomerates that today we are still talking about them. The Hebrew family, the Igbinedion family, the Dantata family. These people have done enterprise and handed it over to the next generation. Razak Okoya, who is still alive, and his business is growing every day, now being run by his children. We moved from the pioneers to the transformers, those who dared to dream big between 1980 to the early 2000s. And here, we look at people like Fola Adiola, the late Tayo Aderinokun, who changed the culture of banking. We look at Jim Ovia, who brought technology into banking. We look at Herbert Wigwe and I Gimokwede, and they all did something different. But one thing they did, they had the courage to invest, even in the instability of the 1980s, 1990s, when we had the structural adjustment program and all of the military era, junta rule and all that, they dared to invest. But today, we are taking it a step further. We are looking at the digital disruptors. By 2010, those who were around them will agree with me, Nigeria had changed. Obasanjo had approved and we now had digital phones, GSM phones. In the time of the transformers, the best we could talk about was not 9 notes, the mobile phone of the past. But we now had GSM phones, and phones had now gone into the hands of the common Nigerian from an era where a minister of telecommunications had told Nigerians that phone is not for poor men, phone is not for the plebeians, phones are for those who have made it in life. We now transcended. By 2010, we had phones in the hands of the common Nigerians, and this had changed the trajectory. This had changed the vision, because more people now had access to internet. More people now had access to global opportunities and realities, because the years where we needed to go to Nitel, to queue in front of Nitel and make international calls had gone. You could just pick up your GSM phone and call any number you wanted to talk to abroad, and the lines would go through. So we now had a more inclusive global environment. And we had a youthful population who was hungry. They were digital savvy. The internet was growing, and we had a population that was hungry for innovation. And that was the opportunity that the digital disruptors harnessed. And today we have Nigerians owning billion-dollar organizations through digital investments. The first person I want to talk about is our very own Michelle Elegbe. Michelle, a proud son of Edo heritage, started InterSwitch in 2002. InterSwitch is the backbone of electronic payments in Nigeria. If you have ever used a POS or an ATM machine, you have used InterSwitch. And in one way or another, you have patronized Michelle Elegbe's InterSwitch. Most of the mobile payments, especially those of schools, hospitals that we have in Nigeria today, the backbone behind it is InterSwitch. And this is what Michelle Elegbe thought about and built in 2002. Michelle was way ahead of his time. And yes, he harnessed that opportunity and he built a thriving organization that today employs hundreds of Nigerians and gives them global level employment here in Nigeria. In 2009, Tayo Oviasu launched Paga. His dream was simple: make sending and receiving monies across Africa easy. He did not start with a mentality of Nigeria. He built his dream on reaching the whole of Africa. And today, millions of Nigerians depend on the Paga app for everyday transactions. That was Tayo Oviasu's dream. And through Paga, Tayo has built a thriving enterprise, doing extremely well. And he's serving many African countries today. Sending and receiving money interregionally depends a lot on Paga today. And then, let's talk about the unicorns. Those Nigerian disruptors who have built billion-dollar organizations. Billion-dollar. Companies valued at over $1 billion. $1 billion, let's calculate that in Naira. That is almost 1.5 trillion Naira. These guys are swimming in money. This is what you call good success. And the Bible tells us that great men will leave inheritance for their children's children. And these young men at 30, in their 30s, early 40s, late 20s, they are building legacies. Unicorn organizations. Let's talk about Inya Aboyeji. He's one of the brilliant minds behind Flutterwave and then Andela. He believed Africa could supply world-class tech talent to the world. And you know what? He was right. That is the foundation of his app, his thinking, and his wealth that has scaled $1 billion today. Building talent required globally and sending them into organizations globally. Olugbenga Agbola, co-founder of Flutterwave, him and Inya Aboyeji worked together to develop Flutterwave, which tells us a different thing from what we have seen in the past. We talked about Hebrew, we talked about Igbenedion. Now we are talking about the new generation, and we are seeing how partnerships and collaborations have enabled them scale and build unicorn organizations that are recognized globally. He was the co-founder of Flutterwave, and today they have built a payment platform that now empowers businesses across Africa. They did not start with Nigeria in mind. They started with Africa in mind. And their platform connects Africa to the global economy. These guys are doing great things. Let's not forget Odunayo Enweniyi, my beautiful, bold female entrepreneur, co-founder of PiggyVest. Her company revolutionized how young Nigerians save money, proving that fintech is not just for the elite, it's for everyone. PiggyVest was built on the concept of the piggy bank. Put in a little bit of cash every day, and over time, see your investments scale. And that is what they have done. And PiggyVest is helping a lot of young Nigerians learn how to save and how to invest. These are the digital disruptors. Young, bold, and unapologetically global. They did not start with a small vision. They started with a great vision, but they started small and they scaled. And they've scaled global. Well done, guys. Indeed, we are proud to have you as Nigerians doing great things and putting Nigeria on the global map for entrepreneurship. So what do we learn from these digital disruptors? Lesson 1 is that your vision can be as big as possible. Think global. What can I do to solve a problem? A problem that affects Africa, that connects Africa to the world. What can I do about a current situation? They didn't limit themselves to Nigeria. They thought global from day one. They thought Africa from day one. They thought big. And that vision enabled them to implement something that could be globally relevant, continentally relevant, and which has pushed them into the league of billionaires in dollars. Number 2, use technology as leverage. Yes, in Nigeria and in Africa, we have poor infrastructure. In Nigeria today, we still do not have steady electricity. Even if you want to do that, our distribution network is old, fractured, and poor. Our road networks in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. It's a death trap waiting for anyone. But if you look at the reality on ground, you will not be able to move. So they thought, what can we do digitally? What can you do with technology that will enable you leverage the opportunity that is in Nigeria and overcome the challenges that you see? That was what they did. They leveraged technology to harness the opportunity that was before them and succeed. They built apps. They built platforms. They did not look at the general environment. They looked beyond it to their vision and what they could do with what was available to actualize their dream. Number 3, what we learned from them: collaboration is power. Michel Elegbe wouldn't have been able to achieve all that he did if he did not collaborate and partner with the banking industry. If you look at Iya and Olugbenga, they collaborated to succeed. And if you look at Oduayo, she collaborated with others. What does that tell us? Collaboration is key for success. At times, there's an adage in my place that says, when you go alone, you go fast. But when you go in teams, you go farther. And that is what these digital disruptors are teaching us through their collaborations and partnerships. They have scaled what our pioneers and transformers, it took them decades to achieve. They have achieved in a much shorter time because they dared to dream big, they were bold and courageous, and they did not go alone. They harnessed the power of other people to achieve their objectives, which tells us what we can potentially achieve if we collaborate and bring on other ideas and resources to strengthen and improve on what we're doing. Really, the sky is not the limit, it's only our starting point. Peter Drucker says the best way to predict the future is to create it. What is that thing that you see in your mind? How do you bring it to come to pass? Through all of this discussion today, you find out that they identified problems, but they brought forth a solution. Scripture says, I'm doing a new thing, now it springs forth. And God tells us that we are made in His image and likeness. If God can do a new thing, so can you and I. So what new thing are we dreaming about? What new thing are we innovating on? What idea are we bringing that will change our current circumstance and bring an easier and new way of doing things? AI is a new thing, but it's disrupting the world today. How can we harness the power of AI? The same way the digital disruptors harness the power of the internet to come up with billion-dollar companies. What can we do differently? That's the question. We can create the future. We can predict the future by creating it. These disruptors have created a new thing. They have made transferring money across Africa easier. They have created payment platforms that have powered our digital payment systems. They have made it possible for even the poorest of the poor to think about saving. Nothing is too small. You can save 100 naira a day. You can save 200 naira a day. You can save 50 naira a day. Just drop it in your piggy bank and you can see the power of compounding interest. The digital disruptors remind us that you don't need to wait for governments. You don't need to wait for perfect circumstances. If you look at the trend from the days of the pioneers, through the days of the transformers, to these days of the digital disruptors, Nigeria has not had a perfect system or a perfect environment. But those who have succeeded have dared to invest, to dream, to sell, and to buy in imperfect conditions through courage and dint of hard work. And they have succeeded and made it big. Many of them started small, but they grew over time to become conglomerates that we see today. There are a lot more that we haven't spoken about, but with these few we have spoken about, there is something we must all learn, that the stars don't need to line up. Everything does not need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. All you need is to have the boldness to dare, despite what the economic says, despite what is happening around you, despite the challenges in Nigeria and the imperfect conditions, despite the fact that we have governments that don't have a clue on how to support SMEs, you can still make it because others before you have dared and they have broken the jinx. So now we've walked through 3 episodes, 3 seasons. The pioneers who laid the foundation, the transformers who built institutions, and now the digital disruptors who are changing the face of the world that we know. Today, they are innovating, they are scaling, they are doing marvelous things. But before we close this series, we have one more episode, The Golden Thread, where we connect the dots between the pioneers and the digital disruptors. There are some characteristics, there are some habits, there are some skills we have seen across the 3 generations that have made success possible. What are they? We will be discussing them in our next episode, where we talk about the golden thread and how we can harness the power in the golden thread to change the world that we know today into the vision that we see for tomorrow. Because that is the way entrepreneurs succeed. Entrepreneurs who succeed are those who can see beyond the challenges and see the opportunities in those challenges and recreate the world that they live in through the enterprise that they invest in. Until our next episode, remember one thing: whether pioneer, transformer, digital disruptors, they teach us one thing: success in Nigeria is not just luck, it's vision, it's courage, and it's persistence. I am Sarah Adiogu, and this is the Sarah Speaks Podcast. Take care.